Good day, everyone. Today we've got Dr. Gibson Mudiriza, who is a professor of economics at the University of Free State here in South Africa. His background is in development economics, and he specializes in the intersection between labor economics, geospatial, and survey data sets. So Gibson, welcome. Thank you very much for making time to be here with us today. Which question are you going to help us answer today?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Tawanta, and good morning to your listeners and audience. So I think today I will try to look at the question of are there sufficient resources in the world to achieve a better life for all, or would they be always be extreme inequality? So these are two very important questions in economics, where if one is to look at whether we have sufficient resources in order for us to have a better life. So I think I'll break the question into two, where we try to answer the first part of that, we have sufficient resources for a better life. Then once we have answered that part, we try to go on to look at whether we always have extreme inequality, which I think for many it's a very valid question, which needs to be addressed, not just answered in terms of economics, but actually addressed in the whole in terms of to see that there isn't extreme inequality because of the challenges that it actually brings as well. Okay, Absolutely. So that's the question that I will tackle. Yes.
Okay, absolutely, I agree. That these are important questions. So the natural scientists, they are always keen to hear your answers, as an economist. So yeah, thank you. If you can just go ahead and pick it for us. Thank you.
Okay, so if one is to to look at sufficient resources, I think we can look at it from the basic definition of economics itself. Like what is it that we mean by sufficient resources in economics, or the study of economics, where we are saying in economics we have to make choices of how we are going to utilize our limited resources to maximize utility in society, given that society has unlimited ones. So the thing that we are looking at is our resources already, we have said they are limited. So the aspect of whether we have sufficient resources or not, it actually goes away in terms of economics, because we have limited resources. But at the same time, these limited resources, they are being matched by what? Unlimited ones for human beings and societies. So when we have unlimited resources, what we want to do is to produce goods and services that are scarce. And why are they scarce? In terms of the resources that we have to produce these goods and services for our unlimited ones. The most important thing that now we want to do when we have limited resources is to make choices in terms of what are we going to produce in order for us to maximize satisfaction for our society given their unlimited resources. So in terms of making choices, what is it that we are going to produce for society? And when we produce it, how are we going to distribute it? So in society, we talk about fair distribution or equal distribution. So at the end, those two terms, they actually mean different things. Fair distribution is we have produced the goods that we have produced in our country. When we now go on to distribute it, we should distribute it in a way that everyone sees it as fair. But on equality now, or equity, if one looks at a doctor who is doing a job where when they went to study, they did 5 years or more, then you look at a cleaner who just most probably doesn't really need a degree. Are we supposed to pay these to the same pay? So the question is, no, we can't do that. That's on whether it's supposed to be equal or not. So at the end, a doctor earns more compared to a cleaner. And at the end of the day, it also determines them in terms of the goods and services that they are going to get in terms of satisfying their wants at the end of the day. So in a way, this is how I would look at economics and the issue of whether we have sufficient resources to ensure a better life for everyone. So as much as we will strive to achieve a better life for everyone, we have to achieve this within the limitations of the resources that we have. So when you have limited resources, what is it that you need to do? We need to strive to achieve economic growth. or we need to achieve to utilize the resources that we have to the best of our possibilities. Or the simplest thing is we just need to cut our wants, like the limited ones, let's narrow them down and we have less wants in terms of our demands. But this is actually quite difficult to say, are we going to reduce our wants? So what we can do is, with the resources that we have, let's try to achieve the best economic growth that we can achieve. That means we'll produce more for our people based on the resources that we have. If we are to utilize the resources that we have also to the best possibility that we can, which is more efficient use of resources and increase productivity, then we produce more, then we can actually do that. So I think that's how I can answer the first part. I don't know if you have any questions about that before we go on to the aspect of extreme inequality.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mudiriza. I think I've got important takeaways. I think, as you were, that still remain at the top of my mind. I think you mentioned this important issue of, that resources will always be scarce. They will always be limited. But I think it boils down to how we choose to utilize these scarce resources. How do we distribute them so that we focus perhaps only on the needs, if these resources are scarce, and, not, try to focus too much on the wants. But I also think that on the other issue of, I think you gave this example of, of a cleaner, right? And a person with a PhD, for example, to say, I mean, really realistically, you can't really have these people on the sort of the same pay scale. But I guess what's important, I'm sure you agree with me, is we need to ensure that even if this person, is at a lower pay scale, at least they're able to cover their basic needs. I think, right? I think you would agree with me there. But otherwise, thank you very much. I mean, if you can go ahead and maybe share a few thoughts with regards to extreme inequality as well. Thank you.
Okay. Now, thank you so much. Yes, that's a very important point that, whenever we talk about the remuneration that people get or the salaries and earnings, they are supposed to at least be able to cover one's needs and basic needs for society. So at the same time, when we are talking about pay and the rewards that one gets from the work that they do, that's where the fairness comes in, like equal distribution of wealth. Then we talk about inequality. So just inequality in general without going to extreme inequality. What are we talking about? This is the unequal distribution of income or wealth within a society or a country, meaning that most probably income is concentrated on one end of the distribution, where most probably we see that like in the world at the moment, if we are to look, we see that the top 5% of the highest earners, out of 100% of the income that we earn, the bulk of it is concentrated most probably like on the top 5%. And everyone else, they are actually getting very, very little. The question is, given our resources that we have, are we in a position to achieve a society where we eradicate extreme inequality? The question is extreme inequality. We can try to address extreme inequality, but the aspect of whether inequality in general will actually go away, for me, in my personal view, inequality will always be there, because in a society or economy, the economy actually rewards people for the work that they do. So it's more like a capitalist economy, where if someone works hard, they are also be rewarded more. So those inequalities will always be there. But we give an example from South Africa, like when there are issues within the mining sector at the moment, where the CEO of a company earns more than 300 million in a year in terms of the annual bonuses that they're giving them. But their workers, they're earning a basic salary of most probably, let's say, about 3,500 rands a month, which if you have to take it for a year, it doesn't even come nearer to the 300 million that the CEO is getting. So as much as we can justify why someone is getting 300 million and someone is getting only 3.5 times 12 in a year, the question is, when you have these extreme inequalities in society, they actually affect a lot of how the society actually operates or how an economy operates. which is why we should also always strive to address extreme inequality. When there is violence that can come because of inequality, there is crime that can come with inequality and increasing poverty in general, which at the end of the day, it actually affects how the economy works. When the economy is actually affected, even the one who is earning the 300 million, they are not going to be able to enjoy it or to earn it in the near future. So these are the different things that we encounter with inequality. As a whole, as a country, or as a world, what we should strive to achieve is, we said we have limited resources and unlimited ones, but what we want is to achieve economic growth. The economic growth that we should achieve is economic growth with just to be economic growth that ensures that income or resources, they are equally distributed within the society or communities. So at the end of the day, still hedgeable. It doesn't create these issues that we end up with, especially when it's extreme inequality like the case that we have in South Africa at the moment. Yeah. So I think I can pause here a bit, then we can have a small discussion. Then you can let me know whether this is sufficient or we need to add a bit more in terms of the issue of inequality and its link to scarce resources and whether we can achieve a better life or not for everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gibson. I think, I couldn't, help wonder and, being, mesmerized, as you were unpacking some of the consequences of these, extreme inequalities. And I think, the South African context really epitomizes, this phenomenon whereby, if we let this inequality persist, obviously it's going to affect everyone, both, rich and poor, through all these high crime rates, and everything. But I think actually that this could actually be more than enough. I think you have done more than justice, I think, to this question, Dr. Mudiriza. So I think our audience, our viewers, will be quite interested to go through and and view this video. I'm sure they might have further questions, and then maybe we'll see, if as the questions come in, as people are, are watching these videos. But anyway, thank you. Yeah, I don't know if maybe you can say or add a few more words, but from my end, I think this really is enough, and it's quite eye-opening for both lay people and also even me as a professional economist. I think I quite enjoyed your remarks and your opinions and the way you put all these ideas across.
And thank you, Dr. Tawanda. I think the last point that I can just give to our audience and viewers is, when one looks at where we have the developed world and the developing nations, where South Africa is part of, one will always see that in developed nations, the inequalities that they are not as huge as they are in developing countries. Where I have a friend who is a lecturer at Leicester University, where he was telling me that the salary that a doctor or a professor earns is not that much different from what the guys for us here, what's the term we use? So those guys for council who moves with the garbage truck. So the salaries there, they are not very different. What a professor needs to, so what a professor needs to do is most probably to do an additional job so that he increases his income. But this is so different when it comes to Africa and developed economies, where our remuneration packages, they are quite, they lead to a huge gap between the lower end employee and the upper end employee, which actually talks about, as much as we talk about inequality, for me, I think I can point to it as unfairness within the pay remunerations that we have. So at the end of the day, if we are to reward people according to how they are working, and we do not ensure that there is this huge gap between the lower end and the upper end, then we can live in a society where there is happiness and harmony, which we currently do not have in most African countries. Thank you, Dr. Tawanda.
No, thanks to you as well. I couldn't, agree with you more. I think I've also heard, people saying that in some geographies, some jurisdictions in the world, the pay scales are not so different. But I mean, thanks for highlighting that. No, I think this is going to be very useful. These insights, I think, are going to be very important to those who are going to be watching this video. Thank you very much, Dr. Mudiriza. It was a pleasure having you here, and I hope you have a good day.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, cheers, bye.